Welcome to I Felt the Dark, where darkness becomes your faithful companion, and every whisper carries an untold story. Are you brave enough to take the next step? Because here, shadows bear witness, and the darkest secrets await to be revealed. Prepare yourself to feel the true darkness.
There's this viral story on creepypasta, written by someone anonymous going by the name Pacers Nation 16. It's about a faceless creature called the Abstract Man, a mysterious figure stalking someone every night. But this isn't just your typical horror story. What this thing does and how it turns the writer's life into a nightmare is the real shocker. Watch and listen to the story, if you dare. My mom's illness felt like an unavoidable curse, slowly but surely destroying her body. Her physical weakness seemed to make the disease hit even harder. What made it worse was that the doctors, even the best ones in town, couldn't figure out what was wrong. Every test showed she was fine, but as soon as she came back home, her condition kept getting worse. Could this be something more than just an illness? My grandma muttered one night, gripping her cup of tea tightly. Her face was full of worry she wasn't even trying to hide. She told us about an old belief passed down through our ancestors, back when our people still followed animistic traditions. They used to say that if someone fell sick for no clear reason, and even doctors couldn't explain it, it was a sign they were disturbed by something that shouldn't be. She was talking about spirits, entities that demanded respect or offerings. I wanted to laugh, but the air in the living room was too heavy for jokes like that. Our family had lived under the shadow of fear from these old beliefs for way too long. I spent my days completely consumed with worry for my mom, trying to figure out what this mysterious illness could be. I spent hours online, digging into anything that might relate to her symptoms. What used to be my pride, my thirst for knowledge, now felt like an exhausting obsession. Night after night, I sat in front of my computer, scrolling through articles, forums, and medical journals. But no answers came. Just darkness and even more mystery. But one night, something pulled my attention away from my computer screen. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something moving outside the window. Instinctively, I turned to look, staring out into the yard dimly lit by the porch light. My eyes locked onto a figure. Near the tree at the edge of the small forest surrounding our house stood something tall, skinny, and dark. Its silhouette looked wrong. Its bones seemed to stick out like something from a nightmare, and its body didn't seem entirely of this world. The faint light from the house barely revealed any details, but there was something deeply unsettling about the way it stood, completely still, not moving, just staring at our house. My heart started pounding. I hesitated, then shakily opened the window, letting the cold night air hit my face. "Hey," I called out, trying to sound firm, though my trembling voice gave me away. No response. The figure didn't move. It didn't raise a hand, didn't turn its gaze. It just stood there, staring with an intensity that made my blood run cold. It felt like it had a purpose, a plan I couldn't understand. Its gaze seemed to peer straight into my mind, uncovering thoughts I didn't even know I had. After what felt like an eternity, I slammed the window shut, pulling the curtains closed with shaking hands. That night, sleep didn't come easily. And when it did, nightmares took over. I dreamed I was standing where the figure had been, staring at my own house. I couldn't move, just stood there, watching as strange whispers swirled around me, repeating words in a language I couldn't understand. I woke up screaming, my body drenched in sweat. The rusty springs of my mattress groaned loudly as I jolted out of the nightmare, dust flying off the blanket I'd tossed aside in a panic. Still half dazed, I rushed to the window and yanked the curtains open. Nothing. Just the empty yard and the trees standing still in the darkness. But something felt off. The air in the room was colder than usual, and there was this weird smell, like burnt metal mixed with a faint rotting stench. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself it was just the nightmare lingering in my mind. Then, as I turned to go back to bed, my eyes caught something on the floor. Right beneath the window, there were wet footprints, long, narrow, with clawed tips. They led from the window, straight to my bed. The night before, I dreamed about that abstract figure entering our house. In the dream, it moved slowly through the rooms, heading toward my mom's bedroom. Its voice, though unclear, sounded like strange whispers, words I couldn't fully remember, like a language from somewhere impossibly far away. I wanted to believe it was just a nightmare, nothing more. But reality didn't offer much relief. The day unfolded like any other, tense, heavy, and full of fear lurking at every corner. The summer heat pushed me outside most days, trying to escape the suffocating unease at home. I'd run through the woods, weaving between the tall oak trees, hoping the physical effort would clear my mind of the creeping shadows. But before I could head back home, I stumbled upon something I shouldn't have. On the ground, I spotted strands of hair, freshly torn from someone's scalp. It was unsettling, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I kept looking, hoping for some kind of logical explanation. The deeper I searched, the worse it got. Near the hair, I found human teeth, yanked out violently, and next to them, a piece of human flesh. A hand, or what was left of it, skinned like a glove and lying near other torn fragments of a body. The sheer horror of it all was impossible to ignore. My skin crawled as a wave of dread washed over me, filling me with a fear I couldn't begin to explain. With my heart pounding, I rushed back to the house. My deep curiosity pushed me to dig deeper, to find out what was really going on. I tried to look up information about the body parts one found in the woods, but everything I found just led to more confusion. It felt like I was stuck in a never-ending maze with no satisfying answers. My mom's illness, which doctors couldn't explain either, started to feel like part of a bigger, darker puzzle. But then, my mind went back to the dark figure standing outside the house, the one that looked so unreal, but was so clear in every detail. I started searching even more, hoping to find more answers about that creature, the abstract man. The more I tried to forget that figure, the more nightmares haunted me. Every night, I'd wake up, restless, with dark shadows feeling more real each time. One night, I felt this strong urge to sit in front of my computer again, to search for more about the abstract man, even though I knew it would only make my fear grow deeper. Was he just a creature attacking people at random? Or was there something bigger behind all of this? I searched desperately, and eventually, I found an old document that was nearly unreadable. The writing was bad, broken, but clear enough to mention a creature known as Obscurus Animus, the soul that abstractions. The legend said this creature was born from human hatred and despair. It preyed on the fragile ones, those who had lost all hope, like my family, torn apart by my mom's illness. The abstract man, according to this document, didn't just steal human bodies, he stole their souls. He made his victims slowly give in to pain, twisting their emotions until, eventually, he took their place. That's why those taken by the abstract man always seemed healthy on the outside but were empty on the inside. They lost themselves, becoming bodies that only carried a shadow of the life they once had. I began to understand that the abstract man wasn't just a figure lurking in the shadows. He was an ancient, evil entity, more powerful than I could have ever imagined, and force that hunted souls trapped in suffering. And now, I knew that my mom, with all her frailty, might have become one of his victims. Am I going to be the next victim? Can I save my mom before it's too late? Time's running out, and the abstract man is getting too close. What I found was disturbing more than I could have imagined. If what I discovered online is connected to what I saw outside my house, then my family and I are in terrible danger. The articles I read explained that the figure is a demonic presence trying to take on a human form. It can shed its skin or other parts of its body, but only as part of a bigger process. In some failed attempts, the human body rejects it, recognizing the demon that's truly inside. But there's something worse. This creature can only fully take human form after draining the life from an actual human. Only then will the body, skin, or organs accept the demon's shape, turning into something completely inhuman. This creature is called the abstract man. It felt like the walls around me were closing in, pressing on my chest. Turns out, the creature wasn't just lurking out there, it's real, and now it's trying to take my mom's place. The figure I saw the other night wasn't a coincidence or a figment of my imagination. It was a horrifying reality. I tried to calm myself down, but when I stood up from the computer, I glanced out the window and saw it again. The abstract man was outside, standing in the same spot as the night before. But this time, he was closer, as if he knew I had just uncovered his existence. My eyes couldn't look away, even though my body was shaking in fear. His gaze was unbroken, piercing me with an intensity that was terrifying. It felt like something dark was creeping into me, threatening to take over my mind. His face, or what should have been a face, had no eyes, nose, or mouth. It was an empty void, a void that radiated cruelty. His thin, ragged, colorless form looked even more horrifying as his shadow blended into the darkness of the night. The figure seemed so alien, so far removed from humanity, that I felt like I was looking at something that shouldn't exist in this world. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body was frozen. Fear gnawed at me, blocking every movement. All I could do was stare at it, and it just stood there, waiting for me to make a move, or even make the smallest mistake that would make me fall into its grasp. The fear kept wrapping around me, and I knew I couldn't just sit still. I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I felt trapped. The fear kept growing, and eventually, I decided to try sleeping, hoping I could escape reality. But even though I was lying in bed, that fear wouldn't go away. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd wake up startled, feeling pressure on my chest, as if the abstract man was already near, watching my every move. I woke up every hour, checking to see if he was still out there, making sure the figure wasn't outside anymore. But every time I opened my eyes, the fear got worse. It felt like he was already inside the house, and I was just waiting for him to make his move. I couldn't sleep peacefully. Every little sound, every creak of the floor, every gust of wind moving the window kept me awake. I knew he was out there watching us. The longer I held on, the more I felt like my family and I were getting closer to destruction. Morning came, but I didn't feel any better. I could feel the abstract man getting closer, taking over the space around me. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. Is there a way to stop him? Or will I be the next victim? By 2 a.m., I could feel his presence getting closer. At 3 a.m., I saw a dark shadow moving outside the window, getting closer to our house. At 4 a.m., the tension was swallowing me whole. The figure, the abstract man, was just a few steps from our door. His shapeless face kept watching, relentlessly, as if he knew I'd figured out what was really going on. I felt like prey trapped, waiting to be devoured. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to tell my parents. I woke them up in a panic, waking up the whole house, explaining about the man standing outside, even though my breath was shaking with fear. My dad, though hesitant, finally grabbed the rifle and went outside. My mom stayed fast asleep, too exhausted to be affected by the tension in our house. When my dad slammed the door open, all four of us, my siblings and I, were met with a shocking sight. The yard was empty. No dark figure lurking. No sound except the gentle breeze. I felt embarrassed. Maybe I was just hallucinating, I thought, or maybe I was too consumed by the fear that gripped me. The next day, my mom and dad went to the hospital to check on her condition, which had been getting worse. I still felt anxious, But I chose to stay silent, keeping my belief about my mom's illness, something far worse than anyone knew, to myself. I knew no one would believe the story about the abstract man. They'd just think I was crazy, and it would only make the situation worse and more worrisome. I sat in front of the computer, deep in my search for more information. But the deeper I dug, the more shaken I became. From what I found, the abstract man had a habit of erasing all traces of himself once he took human form. That explained why I couldn't find more evidence about this creature online. All the data vanished once he took control of a human body. When my mom came back from the hospital, but only by taxi, saying my dad had to handle some work stuff first, I felt a mix of shock and relief. She looked different, fresher, walking around the kitchen like usual. Gratitude flooded me, and I hugged her tightly, overwhelmed by a longing I couldn't explain. For a moment, I hoped everything would go back to normal. I thought that once the abstract man was gone, my mom would fully recover. But my happiness didn't last long. When I went back to my room, the phone suddenly rang. It was my dad. I answered it with hope, expecting good news about my mom's condition. But instead, I heard a very familiar voice, weak and desperate. It was my mom's voice, but it sounded like she was fighting for her life, like her voice would fade away in the next few seconds. Barely audible, she said, "Sweetheart, I love you. No matter what happens, I love you." My heart dropped, and I fought to hold back the painful tears. Something was wrong. I wanted to respond, but before I could say a word, I rushed out of my room and went to the kitchen, the last place I saw my mom from afar. At home, it was just the two of us now. And there, sitting at the dining table, was someone who looked like my mom, but it was something horrific. The creature that may have been outside yesterday had now taken the form of my mom, but it was nothing more than a terrifying imitation. When this thing that looked like my mom opened its mouth, the sound that came out wasn't her voice. It was a high-pitched scream, inhuman and filled with a burning hatred. Its eyes, or rather, the empty spaces where eyes used to be, radiated an endless thirst for vengeance. I knew the signs. My mom was gone. The sadness was overwhelming, deep, and painful. Panic set in, and my instincts told me to run. I turned around, looking for an escape, but the creature was chasing me with inhuman speed. Each step it took sounded heavy and threatening, like the presence of darkness creeping behind me. I ran as fast as I could, but it was too quick. It was getting closer, its cold, elongated hand reaching for me, and just as it almost caught me, I was forced to stop. I spotted a knife on the buffet near the fruit bowl. Without thinking, I grabbed it and prepared to face the creature as it got closer. It snarled, and I could feel its heavy breath, the foul stench coming from its mouth. It was unbearable and made me want to vomit. I couldn't escape anymore, so I fought back. When it almost bit my arm, I plunged the knife into its neck with all my strength. Black blood poured out, but the creature didn't fall. Instead, it just laughed, a scream of death that shattered the quiet of the late afternoon, now turning dark with the approaching night. I knew this was just the beginning. Strangely, the creature began to fall to the floor, choking on its own blood. It screamed and thrashed on the ground, its body writhing in pain as the black blood continued to spill and pool in the living room. But its voice? My mom's voice began to sound. With labored breath, it screamed, "Help me, sweetheart. Help." I looked at the creature that resembled my mom and cried too, reminded of her, but I wasn't fooled by its trick. I knew it wasn't my mom. It was an illusion, a deception by the abstract man. With blood-covered hands, the creature pulled the knife from its neck and crawled away, smashing through the door, making it splinter as if a storm had hit it. Its movements were fast and inhuman, like an animal or a wounded fish. As it tried to escape, the sound coming from its mouth turned even stranger, like a horrifying frog's croak, mixed with my mom's screams of pain. I wanted to stop it, but it moved too fast, faster than I could catch with my eyes. It fled through the forest, still keeping my mom's form, a perfect deception. I knew then, with a heavy heart, that my mom was gone. There was only one truth in this world, and that creature had taken her place, replacing my mom in a way I could never have imagined. That day, my mom passed away, but I didn't feel the sadness I was supposed to. For some reason, there was this emptiness that took the place of that feeling. A realization slowly crept in, a knowledge I discovered too late. The abstract man didn't just take my mom's body, he had taken her soul, and I was the one who handed it over with his tricks. That night, as I teetered on the edge of consciousness, I realized something shocking. None of this had been a coincidence. All the illusions I saw, the voices I heard, they were all part of a trick that had been planned long ago. I realized that I had unknowingly paved the way for the abstract man to steal my mom's soul. With his powerful illusions, I was trapped in his snare, so powerful that I couldn't tell reality from lies. With trembling hands, I had unknowingly wished for my mom to get better, not knowing the price would be her very life. I let the abstract man manipulate my mind, crafting illusions so convincing that I truly believed I was saving my mom. But the truth was, I had given her soul as a sacrifice to that creature. By the time I realized this horrible truth, it was too late. The abstract man, with all his trickery and power, had taken over my mom's body and used every part of her to erase all traces of himself, wiping out any knowledge of his existence. That creature is still out there in the world, disguised as my mom, and I have no idea where it is now. I'm writing this as a warning. If you're reading this, be careful. Every night, check your windows carefully. If you see a tall, dark figure standing outside, with empty eyes staring at you, don't hesitate. Pack your things and leave as fast as you can. This creature knows that you know, and it will do anything to track you down. Don't let it get close, don't give it the chance to grab you. If you're lucky, you might escape. But if not, get ready to surrender your body, because your soul has long been its own.